In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make these Ninja Turtle peg dolls. The full tutorial is on the blog. This just gives a little bit more insight into how it looks. So follow along and click through to the blog to see the rest. So right now I'm just taking the paint. This is an Americana and green beret, and we have our wooden peg doll, and you're just going to paint the head and the neck and the top, because the rest of the body is the printable, but we want to make sure that the paint goes far enough down so that you can't see any of the wood after you put the printable on. So right now I'm just trying to make sure that I get it all over and that there's no holes in the paint. So just short brush strokes, and you can see there's some spots that I missed, but I'm going to go back over those once I'm done. And you can see maybe that middle line of the head where you can see the wood sticking out more. That's actually going to help us paint on the mask, so don't worry about getting that completely hidden. So just turn it until you get everything that you need. Keep filling it up with the paint. Again, this is green beret, and this matches the printable really nicely, so if you can find this one, I would suggest getting it. That way there's a much closer match between the body and the head. And then just painting the shoulders here, a little bit here and a little bit there, until we've got it all the way painted. And there's that line in the middle of the head again that you can see if you look closely. I'm just smoothing it all out so I get a nice even color. And I'm kind of a perfectionist, so it takes me a little while, but you can slap it on pretty quick and be okay. Okay, so I'm done with that. And here is what it's going to look like when it's all dried. So just the head and the neck. And the next step is we're going to take our Mod Podge and we're going to take our printable, and I've cut out all the triangles at the top, and we're going to use kind of a junky paintbrush that I don't care about and Mod Podge onto the wooden figure itself. So just put it on here. Okay, my paintbrush is really terrible. Maybe you don't want one this bad. It's a little too big. I can't really get into all the spots that I need to, so it looks a little bit messier than when I did it with my other paintbrush. So decent one, but not your best. And just get light strokes and make sure you get by the neck, because that's where you're going to need to fold the printable down into. Fold it or paint it nice, and then you're going to grab your printable and align the bottom of the printable to the bottom of the doll. It's kind of slippery and you might get some Mod Podge on you, but don't worry about it. Just wrap it around as best you can, and there'll be a little bit of an overlap, that way none of the wood is showing. Just press it down nice and smooth. I'm trying to get it just right. There we go. Smooth that side. And so now we're going to press down all of those little top pieces where we cut out the triangles to form it around the neck, which can be kind of hard because obviously it's a round piece. And then I'm going to take some of the Mod Podge and just brush it over it lightly at first. And it's okay if you get some on the head like I did. Once it dries, you can just kind of scratch it off and it won't stay on there. Paint the seam so that stays down, and then we want to get a lot of the Mod Podge at the top. I'm trying to brush and push it on at the same time. Sometimes this helps. It kind of depends on what your paintbrush is like. So just some nice even strokes. Again, if you have a nicer paintbrush, you might not be able to see the strokes as much, but it dries and you can't see that much. So I'm just pressing it down with my finger to get a better seal because the paintbrush isn't really working. And this is the part that is most difficult in the process. You can use your fingers or the edge of the paintbrush, but this paintbrush backing is just too big. I need something a little smaller to get into that little nook of the neck. So I'm just going over it repeatedly, trying to figure out how to get that down with such a big paintbrush. As you can see, you just push them in, and sometimes they're stubborn and they don't want to stay down. But you'll get a feel for it as you do your first one and then all the subsequent ones. So you press them down and try to press them over so that they lay flat. That's really our goal here, is for them to be flat and smooth. So I'm taking my other paintbrush, which is a little bit smaller. That's going to help me get it to stick better. That's the back of the paintbrush I'm using to push it down and have it stay down, which like I said, is really the most difficult part of this, is this neck part. But you can see I'm smoothing it and kind of going over to the side to overlap them so that there's not as much of a gap between them. And again, you can use your fingers or a paintbrush, or if you find something else that works, it doesn't really matter. The goal is just to get it nice and smooth. So then when you get most of it down, then you can take your paintbrush again and put more Mod Podge on it. You want to put it along the whole entire body, but also along the neck and shoulder area, I guess, is what it would be. So I'm just taking a thin layer and brushing it on, and a thicker layer up top and pulling it to the bottom. And we want to do this all the way around until everything is covered. And like I said, you can see the brush strokes, but they dry pretty smooth, so you don't have to worry about it too much. And then a little bit more on the top. And I'm trying to smooth it so that the paper isn't seen as much, and push it into the neck part so I know that's entirely covered. Trying to get it all the way into the top and along the seams and anywhere I may have missed a spot. So then we can let that dry, and I have another one that has already dried to show you. So that's what it looks like. It looks really smooth. As you can see, you can't really see the paintbrush strokes too much, and the paper laid down pretty well. So then the next step is painting on the head, which is the mask, and for this one it's Raphael, and he's red. So I have my red paint and my other paintbrush. I'm just going to dip it in the lid, and this is where using that middle line that you can see in the head that never really got painted really works out for us here, because I'm going to use that as my guideline for where to paint the Ninja Turtle mask. So I'm just going to take it and turn it, and sorry it's a little off center here, you can't see what I'm doing. There we go. Just take my paint and drag it along the midline. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but we want it to meet up on all sides. So I just do it lightly at first to make sure it's relatively straight on there. And so it'll meet all the way around. And then I'll dip it into the paint and do thin strokes to go over that. And you're going to have to let it dry and then paint another coat, because a lot of the problem is that when you start, it'll drag the paint that was already there that's still wet, so you can't quite get it all the way done. But for purposes of this tutorial, I'm trying to show you that you can just keep painting over it. And then once it's dry, paint another coat of the red on. You can see how even not letting it dry, it's getting a little bit darker, but it's going to be much easier once it's fully dry. Then once this part is dry and you have two coats on, then you simply do a coat the eyes in a white, So they're white ovals that you'll make, and then you can either use a paintbrush or even a paint pen might be easier to make the black part of the eye. So it's super simple. Once it dries, it'll just be a straight red line. And then this is what it looks like once you have everything complete. See, we have the little whites and then the black part of the eye, and I put a clear gloss on it. Thanks for watching this tutorial, and head on over to thekiwiintheclouds.com for the tutorial on the blog, more pictures, and a little bit more detail. Thanks, guys!